Thursday. All right, we got dogs over there, soda over here, stuff in the background, ready to go, right? Okay. So, in theory, looking at my little cheat sheet here, I have 3 more videos to go until senior year and the high school adventures are over. The book doesn't end there. I have one thing to take care of after that. But we are almost there. The senioritis is kicking in. Your friendly neighborhood Matt is riding somewhat of a high. And now, it's time for tour. And a pretty decent ending. Ooh. So, on that note, let me let the dog out and let's get going. We're feeling kind of hungry, and we came in for a bite. With a renewed sense of energy in just about everything, I jumped right into the next project for creative writing: screenplays. Right out of the gate, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to revisit Striking Back and Derek Stryker, knowing that the story I wanted to tell would make for a trilogy for my series. However, instead of making another sequel, I tackled how everything would start in the zombie epidemic. I did this purposefully because if I ever wanted to, make the movie, I could do it easier. Zombies again? Kelly asked with a smile. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe I'll even slide in a little cold metal object or two in there, I grinned back. I knew I wanted to flush out the background of Derek and Autumn as a couple, and the assignment was pretty simple. We were taught how to set up a screenplay in terms of formatting the page, how to write dialogue and action. Listen, for roughly every page of screenplay, it'll be about 1 minute of screen time, Mr. Anderson explained, so keep that in mind. Sometimes, though, dialogue will move quicker. It was about describing action, camera angles, and setting up scenes. I immediately got to work. There was no stopping me. In my brain, I was living up to exactly what I'd said once before. Autumn was directly influenced by Corey. Making this movie was not an abstract, it was a goal someday, a nerdy entry into the bucket list of a teenager. A bucket list now I saw as something I would fulfill. As class would continue through the year, we'd continue working on our scripts, and we only had to write about 10 pages. Just the introduction to the film and the screenplay we were intending to write. We were under no assumptions or impressions or pushings from Mr. Anderson to write a full-length or even short film screenplay, but we were asked to at least write a page and a half to full page, or a half a page to full page follow-up that tells where the story may have gone and concluded with. When it came time to hand in the assignment, I was happy to do so, and Mr. Anderson read it, gave me a grade of an A, and added a note at the end. If you ever finish the script, no matter the length, I'd love to read it, he wrote. Before the end of the school year, I handed him the completed finished script for Striking Back, albeit a short film, length of approximately 30 pages. I was proud of it, thanked him for the class and his support, and said, someday, somehow, Derek Stryker would be on film. I said, here she come now, singing Monet, Monet. Early April rolled around, and our wonderful band of choir misfits loaded up the buses for a second journey to California from Wednesday, April 3rd to Saturday the 6th, 2002. We would, of course, be performing, but we were also going to Magic Mountain, would take in dinner at the Hard Rock Cafe, and then go to the Universal City Walk for a showing of the 20th anniversary of E.T. and do some shopping. All in all, we were ready for a great time, and as room assignments were handed out, Zan, Putman, David, Corey, and I were going to room together, and we instantly grouped together with laughs and cheers. I think we found the trouble group, Wendy had joked. What also was exciting, and albeit a bit of a sibling bit of back and forth, was Sarah would be coming on her first tour, and there seemed to be some excitement between her and Ashley as to if they would be joining our group. Sarah was not exactly what you would call enthused at the idea of spending it with her big brother, but she also didn't count it out. Are you going to embarrass me? She asked. No, are you going to embarrass me? I responded. Any chance I get, she said with a grin. We loaded up into the buses after school and departed for the 7-hour or so drive it would take us to get to the hotel in Santa Ana. As Putman and Zan sat in a pair of seats, I sat across the aisle from them. Settling into a pair of seats and having no neighbor, threw my Olympic bag next to me and began getting music ready for the drive. As I began to put my headphones on and put my arm on the armrest, I felt something hit it from behind. Figuring it was just someone bumping into it, I didn't really pay attention and our bus began to leave. After about a minute, another bump, and this time followed in quick succession by 2 more. I spun around and saw a smiling, laughing Meg wave at me. I laughed, snapping her photo. Yes? I dramatically asked. How may I help you? Just being silly, she responded. Are you going to keep it up for 7 hours? I asked. She gave me a nod. Alrighty then, as long as we have an understanding. For the first leg of our trip, that's exactly what she did, taking breaks to talk with others or to give me my arm a reprieve, and it was never annoying. I was just happy that even though we might have been farther away from the normal we were used to and what we had known for 2 years, we were making strides. After stopping for dinner, but still a few hours away from our destination, Meg moved up to sit with me and we chatted throughout the trip. It wasn't lost on me how much it felt like everything had changed in just a few days. Keeping our voices down, we plotted more about bringing Adrian back, and she asked what I'd put together for prom so far. I know she's finding a dress, I said. And what are you wearing? Meg asked. I don't think I've actually thought that far ahead, I responded. Why not? I've been focusing on getting everything in order, now tour and pops. Just haven't, I said. Do you know what color her dress is? Last time we talked, she was thinking about something white or pink, I said. Okay, and I don't think you should go with just white, Meg responded. And I could see her thinking. Meg, what is it? I asked. Would it be okay if we go prom shopping for you after we get back? Meg asked. And would you be okay if Cody came to give you guys like a chance to hang out? I was touched at the offer to help me shop, and while I was still having a bit of, residual feelings for Meg, I also didn't want to pass up the chance of moving forward, so I nodded. I think that would be great. Meg smiled. I'm so happy to hear that. I know he'd like to get to know you better, and this way you can both have his and my feedback. I nodded. Yep. Yeah, I think it'll work perfectly. We sat and chatted through the rest of the drive, and as we crossed into California, the choir as a total became enamored with almost every single radio station the bus driver would check. The same dang song followed us. By the 3rd or 4th time, as we made our way through our night drive to California, the loud sounds of Billy Idol's cover of Moni Moni echoed through the bus, becoming the unofficial theme song of the tour, following us every day as we were driving around California. I'm thinking someone should try this out for Pops, Wendy said, looking at me. Oh, no, I responded with a laugh. Not me. Listen, no one wants to see me dress up in leather and sing Billy Idol songs. That would be a mistake. Some playful nudging from Meg followed, and Zan and Putman got in on it too, Wendy laughing. By 10:30 p.m., we arrived at the hotel, unloaded the luggage, and headed to our rooms. With a good night to Meg and Emily and Sarah and others, I headed to my room, where my roommates and I kept up the choir tradition of staying up later than we should have. The sun beats out a warning. The sky is alight. I've got a lot of ground to cover. When morning came around and after breakfast, we boarded the buses to head off to Magic Mountain, and it was here where a sibling rift between me and Sarah came about. A couple of her friends from Shantae, namely Ashley and Patricia, decided they wanted to join Meredith, Crystal, Zan, Putman, and I as part of our tour group. Sarah, not finding this to be at all what she wanted, found an invitation from Meg, Emily, Kate, and Jackie to join them as they went around Magic Mountain. If I were you, I'd be a bit nervous, Putman said. Why would you say that? 2 ex-girlfriends, 2 of my oldest friends, and my little sister, all hanging out together? I asked, grinning. Come on, Putman, what could they possibly have to talk about? In the moment, though, as much as I tried to brush it off, there was, definitely a bit of that teen nerves to the idea of what the hell those 5 could share in stories about me. And you know what? To this day, nothing's ever been mentioned about it from any of the parties involved, so that may end up being one of those most unsolved mysteries of my life. Our group, which would see other friends from choir like Andrea and David and Corey and Daniel and others join us or leave us throughout the day, was primarily just the core group of us, and it was here where, for the 3rd year in a row, tour magic would begin to be sprinkled through the shenanigans, exhibits, and rides we would go on. Ashley and I were always flirting, which at this point was nearly our custom, but Patricia and I were also beginning to hit it off. I'd offer her my arm as we walked, and we began to know each other a bit better outside of just being known as Sarah's older brother or Sarah's friend in Shantae. Zan and Meredith continued their dancing around, whatever they were, but were inseparable during the day, and when not joking with me, Ashley would joke with Putman and join in on the jokes and ribbing. No haunted mansion to get stuck on this year, Putman called out. Your streak is broken, Matt. Yeah, but you're here, so we're not immune from getting stuck on another one, Xandar countered. Listen, it's not my fault, Putman said. It's always your fault, I responded. A loving kidney punch from Putman was his response. With Magic Mountain being tied to the Warner Brothers brand, I tracked down Wile E. Coyote just to meet him, along with the Roadrunner, as I have always been a fan of those cartoons, and I enjoyed getting caught up in seeing characters. Never too old or too cool to be a nerd. We went on a Batman ride, Riddler's Revenge, Ninja, Goliath, Colossus, Flashback, Roaring Rapids. With adrenaline pumping, we would also stop to see exhibits and shops, and Putman and a few went on the Superman ride, but I'm not a huge fan of free fall stuff, so I sat out of that one hanging with Patricia. As we traversed the park at one point while standing around deciding on the next thing to do, I could see in the distance Sarah and Emily and Meg, Kate and Jackie all sitting in front of one of the fountains having their picture taken. While a bit off and off-center, I took a photo as well. The picture that Sarah showed me they had taken is truly one of my favorite ever. Of any type. Because of how wonderful and influential each one of them were to me throughout my life. Truly. To know that my sister got to hang out with some of my dearest friends without me around really is something to look back now on, and now that I'm older, very, very happy that it happened. Even if in the moment my brotherly/friend brain was riddled with anxiety. With our day at the park behind us, choir returned for a pizza night and series of activities and friendship building with requests from Wendy to make sure we attempt to get some good sleep because we had both a high school and college exchange in the morning while also performing. As my fivesome returned to our room, we did in good conscience try to heed Wendy's advice. But we failed. Zan and Putman started playing Magic the Gathering while Corey, David, and I talked music and watched TV. Because tour is tour, and guys never go to bed on time. Hold out your hand, because friends will be friends. Right till the end. With yet another round of Moni Moni by Billy Idol in tow, we departed for a day of exchanges, as Wendy had set up meetings with both a high school choir and a college visit for us to see musical programs to get some feedback on our singing. With lunch set in between the visits, we went through the professional, for teenagers, motions of going through visits and practices, but as we loaded up for the buses to head back to the hotel, Wendy gave the choirs an overview of what we were doing. Okay, so we're going to head over to Hard Rock Cafe in Hollywood. Then we're going to the city walk before the movie. Stay in groups, but let's have some fun, she declared to much cheering. The Hard Rock Cafe had nearly set an entire floor for us to sit and enjoy, with a menu for us to pick through, and as we waited for food, I walked around the restaurant, finding a display for Meatloaf's Bad Outta Hell 2 album, a formative album for me in my junior high years and beyond. I snapped a photo of it and other rock memorabilia around as music continued to play through the restaurant. Over the microphone, one of the servers announced who we were and welcomed us. followed by playing YMCA. And as a restaurant full of choir kids got up and danced and sang and celebrated to the joy or chagrin of the fellow patrons of the establishment. But standing around in a circular restaurant dancing and singing disco is definitely a memory that has remained firmly planted in my sailor brain. After eating, we all broke off to do some shopping before going to see E.T. Still hanging with Zan and Putman, Patricia, Meredith, and Ashley, we went through different shops and finally came upon a shop that was just right up my alley called Things from Another World. A sci-fi and horror shop Putman, Zan, Ashley, and I specifically were loving looking at everything we could find. While looking, we bumped into another group made up of Meg and Emily, Crystal, and Sarah, and it was here that my attention was called up high on the wall. "Matt, they have a Night of the Living Dead t-shirt," Putman said, pointing. "Oh shit, no way," I said, looking. Oh man, I don't have one." "You've got to get it," Putman said, "seriously." I nodded, and then felt a nudge on my shoulder. I turned to see Meg standing there. "I want to help," she said, handing me a few bucks. "Meg, you don't have to," I said. "I want to," she returned. And then she was followed by Zan and Putman and Emily and Ashley and Sarah. "You have no choice, you have to get it now," Sarah said. Putman and Zan had already flagged down an employee. After buying the shirt, we all stepped outside and I took it out of the bag, immediately changing the t-shirt I was wearing into the black t-shirt that had the original Night of the Living Dead poster art on the front in white and green. A happy addition to my collection. And I was touched that my friends and sister had all wanted to be part of it. My friends had always been such a part of my writing, especially my zombie stories, that this was just like a moment where they showed how much they had always cared. That voice in my head that ever told me otherwise be damned. "Perfect," Meg and Emily agreed, and Meg smiled as she adjusted the shirt. "It really is," I said. "Thanks, everybody." As Wendy called us over, she handed out tickets for the movie, and we rushed into the theater, buying popcorn and candy and sodas, taking our seats. Hours later, our groups all collapsed back into our rooms. Our last full day of tour ahead of us, performing and then a party that night. We changed for bed, turned on the TV, and got settled. I slept in that shirt. I'll meet you anywhere you want. I'll meet you on a ballroom floor. The next day, April 6th, 2002, we performed as part of the festival at Mount San Antonio College, both a cappella and Shantae's musical performances being recorded, a recording I found just recently. The highlight of both of the choir's performances comes from Shantae, who did an amazing a cappella version of the song Prayer of the Children. What I remember is as the song continued, members of a cappella, who were all sitting in the back, began to stand. We wanted to show respect and support to our friends, and when it was over, we stood in awe and applauded. It was hard to find dry eyes, both from members of Shantae and the audience in attendance, as to this day it's one of the most musically moving performances I've ever heard. Another part of it I always smile about is how it's so cool to be able to see Meg and Sarah and Ashley and Patricia and other newly found friends be part of it. By noon, both a cappella and Shantae had performed, and we were wrapping up our day on site with pictures of each choir. As usual, the formal and funny photos were taken, and while I only own the funny one for a cappella, we're all more reserved than past photos. Brandon A. balancing a giant back scratcher on his nose is the highlight. Returning to the hotel for a few hours, we were informed of a giant celebration that many of the high schools would be having, a bit of a fun blow-off of steam from performing, and it was during that getting ready for this that, for lack of a better term, some momentary drama occurred. While getting ready, a few of the girls from Shantae and a chaperone had come to our room, and it had gotten out that they walked in on us while, quote, we were changing. Once the chaperone had related to Wendy, she came asking what it was all about. Were you guys opening the door to girls while not dressed? Wendy asked, stepping into our room. Define not dressed, I asked. Matt, don't be smart, was her response. Matt was buttoning up his shirt and had a tank top underneath, Putman said. And the rest of you? Wendy asked, surveying the room. We were all dressed, Corey added. You think maybe the chaperone misinterpreted me being really pasty white for not wearing a shirt? I asked with a laugh. Wendy laughed hard. No harm, no foul, guys, but maybe don't open the door until you've got your shirts buttoned from now on, okay? Wendy looked at me and shook her head as she left, and when the door closed, us guys burst out laughing. As we finished getting ready, and my outfit was, well, let's just say it was definitely something from the early 2000s. Yay! Black pants and a semi-transparent button-up shirt with my hair actually gelled. We met up with the girls we've been hanging out all tour with. It was here where a bit of extra drama occurred, mostly sibling, as Sarah blew up at me about her friends hanging out with me and mine during the tour, and not her. Also, the fact that Patricia and I had shared a kiss had gotten back to her, and she was not taking kindly to it. However, as the party got underway, she went her way, and I went mine. The rest of the night was fun and filled with teenagers having a good time. Putman danced with Stephanie Y. and Shantae, and I took turns dancing with friends while Zan and Meredith danced. Friends such as Whitney snapped photos and shared a few of which I most certainly looked like a freaking dork. But that was just part of the fun and awkward time of high school. As songs changed and a slow one began, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned and saw Meg. Hi, I said. Hi, you, she responded. Would you like to dance? My heart leapt. I still loved her. I still grasped on the fact that we had been working things out, and I nodded. I'd love to. We took each other's hand, and she put her arm on my shoulder and mine on her hip, and we danced. She told me how much fun she'd been having hanging out with Sarah on tour and asked how my tour had been. She asked about Patricia, and I explained we weren't looking at anything past tour, that we just had a good time, but I also wasn't really in the mood to be causing trouble for Sarah, and Patricia agreed. We talked about prom, and I asked about her and Cody and how they were doing, working on trying to build interest and relationship with Meg she'd asked for between me and him. She understood I was taking my pace with it. The song was coming to an end, but as we danced, Putman had grabbed my camera and snapped a photo of us. A photo that only a few weeks before would have seemed an impossibility to me, but one that would later serve to show that even if different, love can always be there, and happiness does have many forms. And I know you won't let me down, because I'm already standing on the ground. With Pop's concert auditions and registration posted, Wendy asked Zan and I to oversee the tech needs of the auditions once again. As the longest-serving tech crew members, we immediately agreed, also enjoying the fact we'd pretty much just be hanging out together all day while seeing a great variety of our choir friends. The rules and setup were the same as the year before. 10-minute audition times, switch out mics, ready for the next act, etc. Like the year before, I had arranged a few tryouts of my own. I wouldn't let my senior year pass without auditioning. As act after act checked in and performed, Zan and I gave cheers from the hallway as they left. Wendy sprung for dinner since the auditions were going to go into the evening, and Andrea arrived a few acts early so she and I could go over our song for auditions. We had decided on doing Don't Go Breaking My Heart by Elton John and Kiki D nearly a year in advance, coming about because we just both happened to know it and had fun singing it together. In hindsight, we may have had our voices more suited and matching for good riddance, but this was just us having fun, a reflection of our time hanging out together when we could. Andrea came dressed in some 70s pop-inspired attire, with me finding a shirt in outlandish colors to reflect a bit of fun of both the decade and Elton John style. We both had fun, joking around on stage and hamming it up, dancing together and singing the 70s classic duet. We traded off the lines, both with our own mics, but also at times sharing one as we grew closer during the audition. We laughed as we danced, and with her being an alto and me being a bass, hitting higher notes with enthusiasm that seemed to surprise Wendy, who smiled all the way through our audition. Once done, Andrea worked on practicing another song, and I changed from my shirt and jeans into something a bit more dressy for when Emily arrived. Emily had one previous audition earlier, and Zan covered as we took time to practice. While a classic rock staple, we had decided on being a bit more formal in our presentations. I wore a pair of black dress pants and a blue dress shirt, which I rolled the sleeves up on. Emily wore a black skirt and a blue tank top, and after running through the song a few times, we knew we were ready. Taking the stage, I plugged in our mics and we tested them, standing on opposite ends of the stage, the small stage in the practice room. Zan turned on our music and stepped out, and Emily and I went right into the song. We sang it as we practiced it. The first two verses, I would sing the first two lines, and she would follow the second two, with us doing melody and harmony on the chorus. As the second verse started, we began to move closer together and closer to each other on stage. And it was still, and still is, one of my proudest chances to sing. It's also another example where lyrics and songs you may hear multiple times hit differently, or even more importantly. It's my favorite duet I've ever done. And I found out a long time ago what a woman can do to your soul, I sang. Ah, but she can't take you any way you don't already know how to go, Emily returned. Our voices continued to melt together as we sang the third and final verse. We linked our arms together, standing in the center of the stage and facing each other. Into the final chorus, where, much like we sat in my room singing, it felt like we synced perfectly. We ended the song smiling at each other. "Thank you," I whispered. She squeezed my arm and we hopped off stage, and I walked her out as Zan walked in to ready the next act. Zan and I continued to work the rest of the evening, going over the solo acts. Darkness fell, and the night was coming to a close. Xandar and I stepped in after the second to last act left, cleared the stage of the mic stands, and went over the setup of the final act. "All right, looks like we're almost out of here, gentlemen," Wendy said. Xandar brought out a mic stand to the center of the stage and plugged the microphone in. "I've seen quite a bit of you today," she said as the singer got ready backstage. Zan walked over and readied the music, and Wendy looked down at the audition sheet. "One last song. Mine. The beat is yours forever. The beat is always true. And when you really, really need it the most, that's when rock and roll dreams come through." I stood backstage for a moment and took a deep breath and changed my shirt. I'd gone over the song a multitude of times. I was not a stranger to it, but I knew this was different. I felt myself getting into a performance mindset, even though this was not a performance in front of an auditorium full of people. So I reached into my Olympic bag, grabbed the last thing I needed, and walked out onto the stage. Put my left hand on the mic. My right hand grabbed the mic stand. I nodded at Zan. Zan hit play on the tape, and I closed my eyes. I was there, back in my room at my window, in the dark, looking out into the world. The music started, that song that I knew, and my heart and soul played, and memories flooded through my brain. Everything tied to that song over the years and months preceding that moment coursed through me in just a few seconds. I opened my eyes and sang. Highway run into the midnight sun. For just the over 4 minutes of Faithfully, I fought to reclaim that song the only way I knew how. I did not walk the stage. I didn't play to a make-believe crowd. I shut everything out but me and that song. I sang with all of my power and love and voice the best love song I have ever heard. A song from the decade I'd been long and stuck in, and I had to exorcise every demon that had ever decided to attach itself to that song. I was going to fight to get that song back, or die on that stage trying. And in order to do that, I had to do it standing there as the version of me that had been lost but was still and always has been the true me. That unbeatable, lovable nerd in a pair of jeans, a white t-shirt, and a denim jean jacket. When I was done, I refocused on where I was, looked at Zan, and smiled. "Thank you, Matt," Wendy said. "I know what this means to you. I do." I grinned and nodded. I don't have to make Pop's concert with this song. I just needed to get that out. So thank you. I turned off the microphone, unplugged it, and began to clear the stage. I would not have any song I auditioned make Pop's concert. I got the song back, though. Woo! Woo, this feels good. Okay. So, real quick, yeah, as you can see, one, I'm a dork, in case you haven't noticed that already. And two, yeah, it still lives on the top shelf of my closet years later. That wonderful bag that got me through so much. We're almost there. That senioritis is kicking in. But we've still got a little bit more singing to do. And I actually start to begrudgingly realize that maybe, oh, just maybe, people like me. Which, for the record, I get. It's just as a teenager, you just always struggle with things like that. But, hey, I'll see you on the next one. Which, by the time that one comes out, I'll have seen Journey again, so love how that all comes full circle. Hey, be good to yourself. And keep on rolling.